So if you were here yesterday or take a look at day 3, we are going to skip over these first notes. So if you want to take a look at them, remember how to do a box plot. We're just going to find the 5-number summary, which the directions are on page 12. So this is page 11. We are going to go to a list and spreadsheets page. We're going to type in our data into one list. We're going to name that list. And then we're going to open up a calculator page and press menu 411. You're going to choose your name of your list and then click enter. Okay? You are then going to draw, we're on page 11, we're going to page 12 in a second. You're going to draw a number line. You're going to label it with numbers. Make sure you use a consistent scale. The smallest, make sure is going to be a little bit below or at your minimum, and the largest is going to be a little bit above or at your maximum. Okay? And then you're going to draw circles or dots for each of these: minimum, Q1, median, Q3, and max. Okay? And then you're going to do whiskers out to the side. Now, let's pretend that for this set of data, we don't have a calculator. Oh my gosh, what do we do? Oh, I figured out what the problem is, so it works. It's good times. Come on now. All right, so if we have a calculator, let's do the calculator first, and then maybe we'll modify this one so that we can without a calculator. Are you ready? Set. Go. So we're going to take our calculator. We're going to open up a... Good. Now if you have stuff on here, make sure you go to new document. No, we don't want to save. We're going to go to a list and spreadsheets page. We're going to name this. You can just call it X if you want. You can name it whatever. This is on page 12. We're on page 12. Okay? And then we're going to go ahead and type in the data that you see onto our calculator here. So we can type in. The first number is 4. All right. So 4, 17, 16. 2 13s, a 15, a 14, a 16, another 17, more 14s and 13s and 12s, and a 14, and a 15, and a 14, and a 16, 17, 15, 14, 15. So notice it says you want to make sure you count the numbers. So if there's 20 numbers, make sure your last number is a 20. Also, make sure you go back up your list and double check that the numbers you entered are correct. If you didn't type it in correctly, just type over it and click enter and it'll fix it. And also, if you notice that you missed a number and you catch what number it is, Amina, remember, recommended yesterday that we just put it at the very end because they don't have to be in order, okay? 12. Okay? Now, once I know that my data is correct, I got all the numbers that are there, we're good to go. Okay? We're going to bring back our list here. All right? All that I'm going to do is follow the keystrokes here. So we're going to open up a new page. Control, document, make it a calculator. Okay. Yes, sir. All right, we're going to go menu, statistics. So I got to change that. It's not 4. It's menu 6. Stat calculations, and then choice 1. This is how we did mean, median, mode earlier. We did this yesterday. Okay, how many lists do we have? 1. We just click enter, and we named our list X. And then we're going to click enter. And this is the 5-number summary right here. So we're staring at minimum, Q1, median, Q3, and max. All right? So, right off to the side here, I'm just going to cut and paste so we can reference it without having to go back and forth. All right? We're going to draw ourselves a number line. So down near the bottom, number line. Whoa, that's not a line. that again. It doesn't be pretty. Okay. The lowest number we have on our list is 4, and the highest number is? So we could start at 4s, and then maybe we'll count by 2s, and we have to go at least up to 17, so probably to 18. So 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. I didn't even need that much, but that's okay. All right. Then, above the line, we are going to, and if you got yourself an eraser, feel free to change that so it's a little bit smaller. We're going to put dots at these numbers. Now, what I would recommend is you do the scatter plot on your calculator first, because a scatter plot will also tell you if you have an outlier. Notice that most of our numbers are where? 13 to 12 up to 18, and we got this random crazy 4 way off down low. Don't know. Someone walked, or someone was super fast. Who knows? Okay, maybe it was a bird or stopwatch click, but doesn't matter. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up instead a data and statistics page. Now, you also don't technically need to do this to get these numbers, if you know what a box plot looks like and how to read it. From here, we're going to click on the bottom axis. We're going to pick X. Notice we get a dot plot first, and we get this random 4 way down there. And instead, instead of a dot plot, we want the box plot. So we go to plot type, and we choose box plot. And you notice that we get a box plot, and we get the dot at the end. That means that this is an outlier. Now, the reason I said you don't technically need to do these numbers is because from the box plot, if you move your cursor over, it actually tells you what the numbers are at each location. So you can just use your calculator. Does that work on yours too? Okay, does, good. So you guys can just do that. So you could just bring up the box plot, use the scale, make your own. But on our graph here, we're going to put dots at each location. So 4, 13 and a half. That's a little bit closer to 14. 16, 17. What did I miss? 13 and a half, 14 and a half, 16, 18. Now, if you look at the box plot that we have here, what do they use as the minimum? They actually use it as 12. So that's what we're going to want to do, because this is actually an outlier. And on our graph, we're going to put it as a star, okay? So we need to ignore, we're going to keep 4 away from the data. We're going to kind of exclude it. And so when we make ours, we're only going to count the rest of these numbers in our box plot. So now, instead of going all the way down to here, we're just going to make our first line to 12. Then the minimum you would say is 12, and then you would say there's an outlier at 4, okay? Yes. Because on the box plot we made, right, this is an outlier, so this is not counted as a minimum. What is counted as the minimum, though? If we exclude 4, right, because this is our outlier, so now we're not going to include 4 in the box plot. What's the next lowest number in our chart? That's where we put the dot. Okay? So we're going to put a line going down this way. A line going down this way for the third dot. We're going to extend it out. Okay? Draw a line down the middle. And then kick our whisker out to the side there. Now, also notice that on this one, notice that the axis actually does get labeled. So you should label yours. So what are these referring to? Times. So we could just put times at the bottom, okay? So you do want to label your graph with a what it is referring to. Times for the 50-yard dash. Get specific if you want, but I'm just going to put a label there. Okay? Questions on how we did that? So what I would definitely recommend is when you're going to do a box and whisker plot, make sure you open it up on your calculator. You can figure out this number. Do you guys want to know how to do this by hand? Sure. So notice that what we're going to do is we are going to do what's called the quartile range. Now, this is abbreviated a lot as the IQR. And the IQR is just Q3 minus inter means inside, right? So what's inside the quartiles? Q3 minus Q1. So what's Q3 according to our number here? 16 minus 13.5 is 2.5. Here's the deal. If you want to figure out, and I'm going to slide this off to the side, we'll do the work over here, okay? If you want to know whether or not there is a outlier, okay, you have to figure out what value is 1.5 times the interquartile range. So I'm going to multiply 1.5 times 2.5, and that gives me, is what? Okay, so that means if the median is what number? Is 14.5, then any number that is 3.75 below 14.5 or 3.75 above 14.5 is a outlier. Okay? So if I say, right, 3.75, and we're going to do 14.5 plus this, and then 14.5 minus this. This is not asked in our course, so you don't have to necessarily know this, but I'm just taking the median, and I'm adding 3.75 to it. And then I'm taking the median, and I'm subtracting 3.75 away. Go for it. So this is going to give me 18.25. And if we subtract away, we're going to get 10.75. So any numbers that are outside this range are outliers. Okay? Notice that the largest number we have is 17. That's inside this, right? But 4 is outside this range. So that's why any number below 10.75 is an outlier. Now, for ease of purpose, do you need to do this calculation? No. All you need to do is enter your calculator, open up your data statistics page, make a box plot, and then it'll tell you whether or not it's an outlier. That means that this becomes your min, right? And then you're just going to make the graph from here. Every single problem. So that range will change depending on what the numbers are, but that's every problem. Okay? So 1.75 above the median and below the median. Any numbers in there are good. Any numbers outside of there are outliers. Okay? Make sense? All right. You'll do this calculation in Algebra 2 in a couple of years, but we don't have to do that now. All right? Okay. So we're going to skip the next page, and we're going to take a look at number 8 here. Okay. Let's also fill in the dot plot. Now, for a dot plot, all you're going to do is whenever you see a number that's here, you put a dot above that number on the number line. So if you're doing a dot plot, draw the number line, make sure you label it with a same number of values and equally spaced out. Make sense? And then for each number you see, you put a dot. So 1 gets a dot, 2 gets 2 dots, and try to make sure that the dots are equally spaced. So like if one has 10 dots and it's really small and another has 4 dots and it's really big, it's deceiving as to which one is more, okay? Does that make sense to everybody? So try to equally space your dots out when you make it. 1 for 3, 1 for 4, 2 for 5, There's 3 6s. There's how many 7s? So 6 7s. And then there's 8 8s, is that right? Now, if you do super small dots for 8s, notice that it looks like the 7 is more because these dots are more spaced out. So instead of making you want to try to make sure your dots are the same distance apart from each other so that you can tell which one's more just by looking at the size of the dots. How many dots are there? 2, 4, 6, 8. All right, we got it. Okay. Mean, median, mode. You ready? Now, for mean, median, mode, you can just grab your calculator, correct? And you can type in all the data, and it'll get you the mean and median. But let's do it by hand. So, if I'm doing the mean, do I really want to add up in my head 1 plus 0 plus 1 plus 2? No. What I'm going to do is say, okay, how many 1s are there? 1. How many 2s are there? So it's really 2 times 2, because there's 2 2s. Plus there's a 3 and a 4. How many 5s? 2. How many 6s? 3. How many 7s were there? And how many 8s? 8. So I'm pairing the number of each number together, and then I'm going to multiply them and then add together. And by the way, we're dividing this by how many terms there were, which was, we got 25. And I'll get the mean. Okay? So we got 1 plus 4 plus 3. How about we make it easier on ourselves? 3 plus 4 is, then we have 5 times 2, which is 6 times 3, 7 times 6, 8 times 8. All right, all over 25. At this point, if I were you, I'd have a calculator out. You got it, you'll have it for the exam, so feel free to use it. If you want to kind of pair these together, 5 plus 7 is 12, plus 10 is 22, plus 18 is 40. That's 82, plus the 60 is 142, plus 4 more is 146, and then divided by 25. It's not going to be a nice number, but you can feel free to just type that in your calculator here. All right? So open up we got a calculator page. 1 plus 4 plus 7 plus 10. Is it 18 next? 42 and 64? That look about right? Yeah. Enter is 146. And then we're going to divide that number by... what the? How do we do that? Now, if you wanted to spit out a fraction, we can hit enter. Otherwise, we can hit control enter, or you can actually do a decimal point. You can put is there a point? The point button on one of these two numbers. So just put it on to 146, and it'll spit out a decimal for you. So control enter, or just put a decimal point on one of those numbers. And so it's 5.84. There's our mean. Median is what again? The middle number. Because there's an odd number of numbers, it's just in the middle. Make sense? So it's going to be the number that's directly in the middle. So you can either like cross out as you go, or if it's 12 and a half, it's going to be the 13th number. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There's the middle number right there. What happens if there was two numbers in the middle? Good. Do the average of the numbers. Perfect. So we know the median is just 7, and then we can see from the dot plot there that the mode is going to be 8. Okay? Questions on that? All right. We got time. We're going to do one histogram, and I'll leave one for homework. These are super easy to do. Okay? A histogram, by the way, is a fancy word for bar graph that touches. This is important. If you bars don't touch, you're going to lose a point, okay? The bars touch an histogram, all right? So what you are going to do is you are going to, given the data, all we're going to do is create an interval for the data. Remember, your calculator does all of this stuff. Remember how we typed in this stuff for question 1 and we already have these numbers? Remember how we were able to do a box plot like this? If you just go back to menu and go to plot type, choice 3 is you can just choose a histogram. Notice that the bars are touching, okay? That's what we're going to do. Now, the interval is how many numbers are you going to count grouped together? Does this make sense? If I was counting, for example, like how many people in the school are wearing certain color shirts, when I'm walking around and I get numbers for each shirt color, I might have various numbers like 19, 27, 26, 25. Okay? I don't want to count each number as its own bar. So what I'm going to do is, what's the smallest number and what's the biggest number? This is called the range. So the range is the biggest number minus the smallest number. So the biggest number we see is 60. The smallest number we see is, oh, it's 62. And the smallest number we see is, looks like 19. Okay, so if we subtract 62 and 19, we're going to get 43. There's 43, a range of 43 numbers. How many intervals, how many blank spaces do we have here? Right? We're going to split these numbers into 6 equal amounts. Does that make sense? So we'll count from 19 to some number. What we're essentially going to do is just take 43 and divide it by how many spaces you have. Oh, we did it again. I don't want a fraction. I want a decimal. So I just do what? Control Enter or make a decimal point there. Now, can I group the numbers in groups of 7? Can I go 19, count 7 numbers up, and then go for the next number? No, because we'll have 1.67 numbers left over. So I have to go above 7 and group how many numbers together at a time? 8. Now, we're going to make a mistake here. If I say I'm going to start the first interval at 19, and I'm going to say, okay, if we add 8 to that, that means we're going to be at 27. Is that correct? Why not? Francis. Okay, now hold on. We're not counting that number. How many numbers are there when you count, if I include 19 and 27, how many numbers is actually in that interval? Right? There's more than 8. Because remember when you take a walk and you're like, okay, how many steps is it from here to the door? Right? When do you start counting? You don't count where you are, you count your first step, but we have to actually count 19 as the first number. So we're actually counting like 0 and then we're walking. Does that make sense? So the number you write down to start your interval is the first number in the interval, okay? So when I want to count 8 numbers, I'm going to start with 19 being the first number. So you can count on your hands. 19, there's 1. 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. So we're actually adding 7 numbers instead of 8. 1 less than how many we want. Does that make sense? The next number after 26 is 27. And if we count again, 27 is 1. And then you're going to count 7 more on top of it, right? 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34. 30, so 27 to 34 counts 8 numbers. The next number after that is? 30. And if we add how many to that? If we want 8 numbers, we're actually going to add 7. That gives me 42. The next number is, and if we add 7, we're going to get 50. The next number is, add to get, and then we're starting at 59. We're going to add to get. Now, is it okay that we went above the highest number? Sure, we just can't go below, right? We want to make sure we include all the numbers. Now, all you're going to do is in the tally column, you're going to go through the list and say how many numbers are actually in that range. So if I count 19, and what I kind of like to do is kind of cross them off. Don't do this. Because if you want to go back and recount, I have no idea what the number is now. So just a quick little line through it. 19, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that doesn't count. 6, looks like 6. Now how do we do a tally? That's where you do the lines. 1, 2, 3, 4. The line across is 5, and then a 6. The frequency is what number is the tally. How many tallies did you make? Boom, we make a 6. That's it. You just write the number there, okay? The frequency is how many times that occurs. So 27 to 34, same thing. You can go through the numbers. So 27, there's a 34, there's a 32, there's another 27, there's a 33, and there's a 29. Oh, I made one too many. How many we got? So same thing, right? And then you go back and count. 1, 2. It does. I always look at the interval as I'm going and kind of checking it again. So 1, 2. And what you might want to do sometimes is like, maybe I'll go the other way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, now what? 35 to 42. Right? 27. 34. 32, 27, 33, 29. Okay? Now, the next one is 35 to 42, so what do we got? These are all gone, so 1. Oh, that's not 1. That's 43, that's outside the interval. 1. Just 2? Which one's the last one? I got 34. 38. Oh, there's a 41. Nice. So there is 4. So 4 lines of 4 in the end. We forgot the 6 there. All right, what about 43 to 50? 43, 44. Good. What about 51 to 58? Nothing. So no tallies, and then we just put a 0. 59 to 66, 2 tallies, and a 2. Okay, now here's the deal. We have to create 6 bars, because we have 6 intervals, so we have to make sure we space these out evenly. Also, where is our first interval starting? 19. So I'm going to start 19 right here. This is where 19 to 26 goes. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to create, let's say I go over, don't do this yet. Everyone got it? I'm going to go over 4 spaces, and I want to say that this is 19 to 26. Do not do this yet, okay? Now, that means the next interval needs how many spaces? 4 as well. So if I go over 4, and then I'm going to go over 4 more, what problem might I run into? I might not have enough space. You have to make sure the amount of space you use in the intervals is the same, okay? So make sure you plan this out ahead of time. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4. If I go over 4, there's 5. Ooh, I do have enough to do 6. So I can count by 4s. If I tried 5, you notice you'd run out of room. Okay, now also, the first number here is always, if your interval starts at 19, what do we need to include? We need to include the little lightning bolt break to indicate that we're skipping numbers between 0 and 19. Okay? And on the bottom, you're going to just fill in the intervals. So 27 to 34, 35 to 43 to 50, 51 to 58, and then 59 to 66. And then our y-axis is our numbers. We're counting by what there? One's okay? Do we need to label it? Nope. And then all you're going to do is, if the first number is 6, now what you might want to do is sometimes I'll just label with every 5 so that I know like how high to go up. So I'm going to go to 6. So I'm going to draw a bar going all the way up to 6, over 4 more, and then dropping down. So there's my bar, and I'm just going to kind of color this in for myself. Waiting. Okay. How many what's the next bar's height? For 27 to 34. Also 6. So now we're just going to go over 4 more, drop a line down, make sure it ends at the interval, and then we can shade this one in. The next bar should be how tall? 4. So now we're going to go only up to 4. So we're going to start at the end at the 27, 34 at 4, draw a line over, and then drop down. Okay? The next one is 2. What do we do for 0? Don't put anything. And the last one is 2. Okay, quick check. When you've counted your frequencies, how many students were there in the numbers? How many data points did we have here? 20. Make sure your 6, 6, 4, 2, and 2 adds to 20. So this should total to 20. If it doesn't, that's kind of a way to check yourself, okay? Now, we also need to label the histogram. So just like we labeled the axis before, we're going to do the same thing. So what did this represent? This was the frequency. Or you might even say it's the ages, right? Oh, actually, that's not the ages. What's the ages? Oh, that's the x-axis. So this is a little too close for us, but down underneath here, we would want to put like ages underneath this to represent the ages there, okay? Make sense? And if you wanted to title your histogram, you could call it Ages of Students. You don't have to necessarily put a title on the top, but the axes should be labeled, okay? Homework tonight. You are going to do the same thing for number 2 and then just stop. So finish 15 for homework tonight. James. All right. So